that we're able to share for a few moments. I know we all have so much to share, and I know I can feel all the energy, all the rhythms of the energy that have happened since our first moment together during our opening reception on Wednesday evening. So we have the unique and distinct opportunity to hear another amazing sister. This morning we were blessed with powerful, powerful words and experience, wisdom, perspective, and we will be now joined by the very amazing Naomi Lanoi, Leleto, from Maasai people of Kenya.
Good afternoon. My name is Naomi Lanoi, and I want to start by thanking all the wonderful people who have spoken before me. You're all full of wisdom, and it's a blessing to listen to your words. I also want to thank the seventh generation for giving me a chance to come over, network, and share my experiences as a Maasai woman. And to start off, please allow me to describe my territory, because I'm looking at the relationship between the relationship of my land and territories. My county, Narok, is a beautiful landscape with fascinating history. Narok is is a small county in Kenya, and Kenya is in Africa. I know I've met so many people who have referred to Africa as a country, so no offense, I just want to be clear. From the west is the Maasai Mara Game Reserve, the epitome of the world's diverse wildlife with endless savanna. Maasai Mara Game Reserve is one of the 7 wonders of the world and is the most spectacular wildlife events on the planet. Well, we are not sure whether that will be on in some years to come, and I'll explain why. The Maasai Mara ecosystem depends on robust Mara and Ewasonyiro rivers. Both of these rivers are international rivers, with the Mara River draining into Lake Victoria, which is the source of the River Nile, while Ewasonyiro drains into Lake Natron in northern Tanzania. And this is the most important breeding site for lesser flamingos, which are the main attraction in the World Heritage Sites, Lake Nakuru and Lake Bogoria in the Rift Valley of Kenya. Further west is the Maasai Mara forest that forms the southern part of the Mau Forest Complex, which is the largest closed canopy forest area. It is a trust land measuring close to 46,000 acres of indigenous forest, which is managed by the Narok County government. And despite its high catchment value and its potential to become a twin conservation area with the Maasai Mara, which is a national reserve, the Maasai Mara forest is one of the most, which is, again, one of the most degraded forest blocks in the Mau complex due to irregular allocation of forest land to farming communities. To the east of Narok are the Suswa Hills with double cratered volcano. Oh, this is a beautiful land, huh? Its inner volcano, named Oldonyonyoke, which means a red rock, is covered by a forest that is also home to leopards, hyenas, buffaloes, antelopes, and all the other wild animals you've maybe watched or seen. And by a twist of nature, this inner collapse formed a moat-like trench surrounding a central kind of island in the crater and creating a breathtaking view that has to be seen to be believed. In our lovely territory, we have numerous medicinal plants. And one of them is the Leleto. I don't know the English word for that, I'm sorry. But I was so happy to see the Leleto plant being used by the tribe's women for the traditional ceremony, for those who are lucky enough to attend the traditional ceremony at the ocean. This plant, according to our traditional knowledge, is highly valuable for medicinal and aromatic purposes. I remember when we were young girls, we would rub it on our bodies and we would smell nice, you know. The Maasai often use the soft aromatic leaves of the Leleto as bedding, like a pillow. You put under the pillow, since it promotes deep sleep and deters insects. So if you have a problem of sleeping, here is a remedy. Many wild animals that live in the areas where Leleto grows, particularly elephants, buffaloes, black rhinos, antelopes, and gazelles, have been observed rubbing themselves against a Leleto tree. And upon closer inspection, it is revealed that those animals which have crushed the leaves onto their skins are relatively free from parasites. It's indeed a useful plant for both the people and the animals. The Maasai use herbs, barks, and roots which are boiled in soup that is taken in order to improve the condition of the stomach and the blood. We know the herbs that can be used as remedies for many other conditions. For example, we have a plant called olerai, whose bark and wood are used to cure fever and induce vomit. And I'm very happy that Margaret explained the importance of some of these herbs and medicinal herbs. We also have osogonoi. I hope by the time I'm done you'll learn some of these terms because I don't know their English names. Osogonoi, whose bark, berries, and roots are used to cure malaria, cough, and cold. I know when you go to any doctor, no one will recommend any drug that cures all those diseases. So as Indigenous people, we are very fortunate that we have some of these plants right at our doorsteps. We also have olkinyei, whose bark is used to cure the spleen. It is the responsibility of every Maasai child to learn about the medicinal value of the herbs as he or she grows up. Teenage boys are taught about all the grasses on the range, and traditionally boys are assigned the task of looking after small stock like goats and sheep around the homestead. And in the process, they also pick up the knowledge of herbal medicine used in the home. Girls receive their knowledge of herbal medicines from their mothers and grandmothers, with whom they spend a lot of time with. Our traditional clothing and beadwork is adorned with bright colors and relate to our land and territories. I was humbled to listen to Dr. Henrietta Mann, I don't know if I pronounced that right, talk about her rich and lovely perspective on various colors. The Maasai also have a range of colors, and each color has its meaning. White is the color of milk, which comes from a cow. Our lives revolve around cows. Talk about anything else, but always have the cows in place. Considered by the Maasai as pure and holy animal, white represents purity. White also represents health, because it is milk that nourishes our bodies. And I happened to have an opportunity to go to school in Arizona. And for almost 2.5 years, I missed our milk. I tried all kind of milk, and none of it gave me the taste of our beautiful milk from our cows. And I was very desperate. And I remember telling my mom, please, when I was going back home, make sure you come with a gourd of milk at the airport. I just wanted to take it right on. Red signifies danger, ferocity, bravery, strength, and especially unity, because it is the color of the blood of the cow that is slaughtered when the community comes together in celebration. Blue is important because it represents the sky, which provides water for the cows, which gives us milk, blood, and meat. Green is a symbol of nourishment and production. It represents the land which grows food for the cattle to eat, for our cows to eat. Green also represents health of the Maasai community, because there is a local plant called olari, which grows tall and plentiful, as the Maasai hope they will too. The gourd that holds the milk that are offered to visitors are colored orange. And so, this is the color of hospitality. Yellow represents the sun, which sustains life by helping the crops and grass grow for the people and for our cows. Black represents color of the people, but more importantly, the hardships we all go through in life. It suggests that difficult times occur with everyone as part of the same natural sequence of life. And reminiscing my childhood memories, where almost everything was all natural. The meat and the milk from our cows, natural light and heating from the firewood. I remember I was just telling a joke to one of us that when I was a little girl, my father went to the city, and when he came back, he told us, where I was, you just needed to touch the wall, and the light, the sun came up. He meant electricity, just touching. And as a young girl, I was very disturbed by that. That you can just touch the wall, because he never explained much. That you can just touch the wall and the light came up, because that was a very, very, and that story, until I got a chance to realize what he was talking about, really disturbed me for long. Natural games and handmade toys. That is the kind of life we lived. Right now, I see my kids, I go to the stores, I buy a toy, and within a minute, it's all destroyed. And our kind of toys helped us to engage our minds, and it took a lot of time to make whatever you had to make, and you felt a lot of, very good about it. And then going to the rivers with so much pride and laughter. Those were my best moments, when we could have our girls going to the river and gossiping and laughing. And let me tell you, the best gossip is from the village. Because you have all the time, no interaction from technology. You can laugh, you can act, and make a lot of fun with it. And so just to track off a little bit, the kind of projects we take to the people, especially Indigenous people, should be projects that connect to their livelihood. I've seen, out of sympathy, donors coming over to our territories and trying to dig boreholes for water, which is a very good thing, because there are areas which require these boreholes where the rivers are very far. But maybe what we don't understand is that we are cutting that social life. And some of us, going to the rivers was the only time we got time off from the home. So it's important maybe to interact and engage the communities and try to see what is it. We are bringing these developments to you, but what social aspect are we taking out? When you bring the borehole right at my doorstep, I will not have time to go to the river and do all I had to do as a young girl, as a woman, because women also needed to connect. Boys and fathers looking after the cattle, and of course, our day ended with beautiful stories from our grandmothers. And having all these, as I was leaving home on my way to the airport, or when you're going through the city, you cannot help imagining that the city is Nairobi. You cannot help imagining that all of that was Maasai territory, which was referred to Enkare Nyorobi, which meant a place of cool waters. An area that for years provided grazing land for our cows is now full of commercial properties and gated communities, leaving the Maasais with no choice but to walk long distances in search of pasture and water. And those who've been privileged to come over to come over to Nairobi once in a while, and probably along the airport, you'll see our Maasai men herding kettles along the road, because all the dispersal areas no longer exist. The Maasai community failed to understand how communal grazing land were passed into the hands of private developers. As one elder said, we don't know who sells our land to private developers. We only realize it has been sold when we see them erecting concrete fences and putting up structures. He is among the Maasai headsmen reeling from the effect of rapid urbanization that is encroaching on the plains surrounding the capital, Nairobi. The encroachment and intrusion of our territory started with the colonizers, the men of the cloth who came to Africa in the name of the Lord. And Desmond Tutu put it very well. When the missionaries came to Africa, they had the Bible and we had the land. They said, let us pray. We closed our eyes. When we opened them, we had the Bible and they had the land. I confidently then would say, as Indigenous peoples, it is our hospitality and love for the people and nature that got us in trouble, and still is. Because no matter how hard we are pressed and oppressed, we still remain strong and resilient, or at least try to, in this unjust world. For example, in the areas around the Masai Mara, intruders who come in the name of helping the community have taken advantage of poverty levels and lack of basic facilities like schools, hospitals, and clean water. They come disguised as volunteers. Soon enough, they request for several hectares of land to build churches and schools. What follows is an erection of electric fences and written warnings of dire consequences should the community trespass for pasture. Our history tells us that the Maasai were once highly self-sufficient people. They were successful pastoralists whose fierce warriors made strategic raids, giving them the most prolific force in all East Africa. And I can tell you for a fact, the colonizers found it very hard to penetrate the Maasai territories, but the bullets defeated us. Cattle trading was the preferred form of currency. Every aspect of the Maasai way of life was contingent upon them, from marriage rights to their semi-nomadic migration patterns. I can tell you for a fact, up to date, you have to pay a number of cattle to get a Maasai girl. You have to pay a lot of dowry, and the only way of paying that is through cattle, cows. So you can imagine how many cows my husband paid for me. The people had large herd of cattle, which required ample land for grazing. The land was once over 200,000 square kilometers. They had occupied this land since before the 15th century. In all this time, they did little to detrimentally impact the environment. The way of life was simple, but very effective, depending on land for pasture, just what they needed and normal. Livestock is a social utility and an important role in the Maasai economy. Clans establish close ties through exchange of the cattle. To the Maasai, cattle and the children are their most important aspect. And this is very common when you greet a Maasai man, he will tell you, the greetings always start with cattle. And then you'll go to the children. And here when you talk about the children, the wife is included in the children. And we are not complaining. It's okay. Given that the cows require ample land for pasture, it's unfortunate that land privatization and forceful illegal acquisition of land have rendered most of Maasai families as squatters in their own territory. The lack of land for grazing and other needs, such as water, causes a depreciation of livestock. This affects the Maasai families for the worse, as their livelihoods are centered around the cows. And globally, and especially in Africa, indigenous peoples are increasingly being dispossessed of their ancestral lands, and therefore are lost to their territorial connection and attachment. And as I said, it started during the colonial times, where many of them lost their land to European settlers. It continues today, where conservation interest, commercial plantations, mineral exploitation, and now recently hunting activities by wealthy Middle East royal families have led to encroachment, expropriation, and forced removals. The white settlers, the colonizers, I don't know what other term they are called, came with a dangerous misconception that our land was a wilderness and we had no use for it. That our lifestyles were primitive, backward, and unproductive, and degrading to the environment. Can you listen to that? Well, the Maasai community did not think of their territory, or we don't think of our territory as wild. Only to the white man was nature a wilderness. And only to him was land infested with animals and savage people. To us, it was tame. It is beautiful. It is tame, it is beautiful. And we are surrounded with blessings of the great mystery. The concept of private ownership was until recently very foreign to us. However, between the 1960s and 80s, a program of commercializing livestock and land was forced on us, initially by the British and later by the government of Kenya. Since then, our land has been subdivided into group and individual ranches. In other parts of Maasai land, people have subdivided their individual ranches into small plots, which are sold to private developers. The new land management system of individual ranches has economically polarized our people. Wealthy government individuals acting as middlemen in selling Maasai land. And I can tell you for a fact, the politicians eye for our land because there's this common slogan that says it's our time to eat. And when they get in power, the first place they eat is in the Maasai territory. That's the first place they take our land. They have substantially increased their wealth at the expense of the community. The largest loss of land, however, has been to national parks and reserves, in which the Maasai people are restricted from accessing critical water source, pasture, and salt lick for the animals. Further subdivision of our land reduced pasture size for cattle heading and consequently reduced the number of cows per household. As a result, the Maasai society, which once was a proud and, as I said, self-sufficient society, is now facing many economic and political challenges. The level of poverty among the Maasai people is beyond conceivable heights. It is sad to see a society that had long tradition of pride reduced to beggars and fed on relief food because of negative imposed foreign concepts of development. The future of the Maasai is uncertain at this point. One thing, however, is certain, that the Maasai culture is quickly eroding at the expense of civilization. Because we are living in a system that globalizes our minds and globalizes our existence. It is dangerous. According to Article 26 of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, Indigenous peoples have inherent rights to the lands, territories, and resources that they have traditionally occupied, owned, or used. Unfortunately, this to me is more of a general statement without any far-reaching legal consequences. Maybe the lawyers in the house would advise us on that. Now that the Maasais have been thrust into legal land disputes, they have little choice but to accept the ever-advancing modern ways. Though we maintain most traditional ways and observe centuries-old customs, Western society has slowly wormed its way into our day-to-day lives. For the survival of the Maasai traditions, for the survival of our cows, the grass must remain green. Thank you.
So another round of applause for Naomi. So we go to another cultural performance, but I don't see the boys in the room. So if we can encourage them to come forward. So if somebody could encourage the, okay, we're getting it arranged for them. Pardon? No, just drumming. So it gives me great honor to introduce the Ancestral Guard from up home, Yurok country. And they'll offer a few songs for us today. So, Sam?
So we'll start with John. How's everybody doing? Sorry, ran out of breath. Ran it in here. All right. In our way of life, we believe every soul is personally touched by Creator, given a gift of life. And that's our responsibility to find out what that is. And to be happy. Our concept of Ancestral Guard started when we were all young, still finding out our past. And that's when we realized that we all had strengths in different areas. Having said that, I'd like to bring on some words from my homie Einstein. Everyone is a genius, but if you judge a fish on its ability how to climb a tree, it will live his whole life thinking he's stupid. When I was young, I realized I had natural talent in using my resources around me, from making horn jewelry, from making to the hide on this Elkai drum I'm holding today. I grew up smoking fish, eels, picking mussels and seaweed, and feeding elders. A lifestyle that no one can take from us. A mindset I wouldn't sell for all the currency in the world. I acknowledge the past for its beauty, strengths, and weaknesses. I acknowledge the present for the motion of change that is here today. And I know in my heart, my kids, our kids, will be ready to gear up for the tests and challenges that we are facing and will face to secure our footprint of world renewable energy. And to be happy. Because at the end of the day, water is life, life is energy, and currency is what you make it. Walk loud.
All right, hi, my name is Zachariah Gable, and I'm a hunter and a fisherman and a young man of world renewal. I'm going to talk a little bit about the hikes that we've been on. My first hike that I've been on to high country was when I was 12, but because age requirement was 16, I had to age 4 years overnight. I've been on many trips into high countries so I could be taught what to expect and the way you should act when you're on sacred grounds. So now with the knowledge, we helped put on a spiritual boot camp. Spiritual boot camp is where we take our people to high country and give them the knowledge we need to be able to go on their own. We have 6,000 members in our tribe, and about 2,000 live in our ancestral territory. And about roughly 500 people dedicate their lives to ceremony. and about 8% of that, 500, go to high country. And thanks to people like Chris and our spiritual boot camp and our family support, that percentage is going higher. Thank you.
Ayukui, Nick now Peter Jensa. I am a regalia maker and a man of world renewal. Today I want to talk about the basics of redwood canoes. In Yurok language, we call the canoe Othwayach. And over this last year, I had the chance to work with Red Deer Consulting. The Ancestral Guard, we put on all-day events with canoes. How to handle, where to handle, why to handle. And the important... Thanks.
Ayakui. First time in front of a live crowd. Hello, Ayakui. Neck now Joshua Severns. I am a man of world renewal. My purpose in the Ancestral Guard is to document our history in a good way. I am the scribe. Thank you.
Hello, my Aikui Nek now Sami Jinsaw, Rek Warrior Mate Wamechok, and I am a man of world renewal, and this is kind of like a dream just to see. So, but what I want to say is that, you know, we were born in the struggle and raised in the resistance, and we come together and we do these things not just for us, our families, but for the next generations. My grandmother told me when I was younger that your life is not your own because it belongs to the people of Downriver. I didn't know what she meant like that when I was younger, but I know she'd be talking about downrivers all over the world. Because that's what it is. When we come together, we do these things, it's to share that inspiration with everybody. We have a couple slides up there that we're going to be showing while we're singing, and just a couple of our events that we have been through. And we're going to start off with a brush dance song, and then we're going to go into some gambling songs, and maybe wrap up with a song of world renewal.
Thank you. Thank you, boys.